Aye.
Aye. Moving on to old business, hearing none. Moving on to architect's report.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the building committee, Justin from Tecton. Pretty modest update, although it doesn't reflect the amount of work that's going on out in the field. Only to say that we've been working with Gilbane and Colliers relative to the closeout or the completion of the project for the end of this month, which means that we will be out in the field this Thursday, next Thursday, May 29th, punch listing the exterior building envelope as well as the roof, and be conducting the interior punch list the week of June 2nd. In the meantime, we're also coordinating all of the final affidavits required for building permit and certificate of occupancy, as well as continuing to coordinate the vendors for their delivery of furniture after we get through the punch list process here. So all things related to closeout, as well as kind of being on call for any of these items that come up in the field. Zach has kept up with the great communication between Gilbane and Tecton, and him and Tim are on the phone. Tim Mayu, the project architect from my office, are on the phone frequently throughout the day as things come up, and just kind of in the measure twice, cut once category of installation. So with that, there are a number of PCOs that have caught up with field directives over the recent past that I'll be happy to speak to if any questions arise. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the building committee may have.
Any questions for Justin? Hearing none, moving on to the construction manager's report.
Thanks for that update, Justin. Good evening, everyone. Zach Flores with Gilbane Building Company. A couple visual updates that I can give everyone. I'm going to take over the screen now and go ahead and share our most recent drone flight that was taken from last Friday. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So the one that we're looking at right now was from April, and as I start to pan over the site, this is our latest update from this May. So as you can see, we were able to bring everything up to subgrade in the south parking lot. And actually today I got some photos to show everybody, but our binder is now down and complete in the south parking lot of the school, as well as all of the process and subgrade over on the east and west playgrounds. Concrete around the site is substantially complete at this time. All of our concrete curbs and walks. Most recently, we were able to wrap up the plaza and the connector walkway in the south parking lot, which I'll pull over my other screen to see some photos from the binder that was put down today in the south. So we're planning on wrapping up top coat this week, starting the south parking lot and then finishing off the north. And then switching over into the inside, we're substantially complete in the gym at this time, with the exception of some electrical finishes. Our bleachers arrived on site last week, along with our operable partitions for the stage or for the platform. So those have been installed and are complete at this time. And then also starting tomorrow, we have the finer cleaner come to site. They're going to be starting with the 9 classrooms over here in A building. So the majority of our classrooms have been fully padded out and then cleaned by our laborers. So now we're going to start ripping up the flooring protection and actually get a final clean going throughout all of A building, or the pre-K, kindergarten, and admin wings. To the right is the media center. Finishes are continuing in this area, wrapping up final paint, which we're expected to complete at some point next week. And then going to my last group of photos. Here's a new picture of the plaza with the concrete that was completed down at the lower B plaza with that beautiful curtain wall, and the curtain wall over at the south stair. So other major updates that we have going over the next 2 weeks. Startups are continuing. We had the generator startup today, so we're pushing through startups for the balance of all of our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection. Final cleaning, as I mentioned, is starting tomorrow. Finishes are ongoing actively throughout the main level, starting with final cleaning and main building A, and then working our way down to the lower level and out the building. And then testing with the fire department, police department, building department, health department is ongoing over these next couple of weeks. So we're getting through our final inspections as we roll into the closeout and the punch list phase of the project with Tecton and Colliers. So those are the major updates that we have as of right now, and to be happy to answer any questions for anybody on the committee.
Any update on the status of the railing? In the
Yes, this the latest status on the railing that we have for the central stair. We're expecting that railing to be on site the week of 5/26. So right after the holiday next week, and then we're going to be beginning the install of that railing. That railing is plus or minus a 2-week duration, so we're going to be working with our Miss Metals sub to get that in as quickly as possible while maintaining the quality too, not just throwing it in, but doing it correct the first time and ensuring that we have a great product that's installed for the central hub of the building.
excellent, great news. Any other questions for Zach? Turn it over to Adam to handle the paperwork stuff. Got a
Yes,
busy
thank you.
agenda.
Yes, I'll continue the theme
tuned
of,
up.
I'll continue the theme of a short update before we get into the many items up for votes tonight. So as evidenced by a lot of the procurement items that are available, lots of wrap up cleanup ATP items, as well as some of these last mile procurement items that we've been talking about for a while, many of which are on the agenda tonight. In addition, the Colliers team has been working with school principal, town IT on some of the pre-move, pre-furniture installation items. Now that we had the initial design, we had the final design, procurement, but as you know, there's always things that change as you kind of get into the nitty gritty on, this isn't just a classroom, it's the classroom that, Mr. Jones or Mrs. Smith is going to be teaching in. So as those items evolve, things like, where printers are physically going to be located, all these last mile items are something that's Colliers has been working with the end user stakeholders to figure out if there's any other tweaks or changes needed. So that way, when they get moved, when they get delivered, there's a place that there's installed and there's the plug that's there and the data drop for any changes between the original design and where we're going to be on day one. So some of that involves purchasing equipment like we're doing tonight. And some of it is coordinating with Tecton and Gilbane on, if we need another outlet to make the end user happy, we'll coordinate those items also. So lots of continued behind the scenes items. So that way, when we get to June and July and August, things can be moved in smoothly and we're ahead of the game on those items. So other than that, I can kind of pause there before jumping into ATPs and quotes and things of that nature.
I think you're good.
All right, so I will we'll do this in a couple batches maybe. So I'll go through the ATPs first and then show the motions, and then we can go on to the non-Gilbane items after that. So sharing my screen here. All right, there are 10 ATPs on the docket for this evening, and per usual, I'll go through all of them, and then we can ask if there's any questions that come up, just let me know, but otherwise we can talk about it at the end if need be. The first one is for just over $3,500. This is ATP 71. There were some mechanical equipment components and VAV boxes that were originally targeted to be powered by certain panels in the electrical room. However, coordinating with the end installer and looking back at what the intent of the generator scope was, the intent was that those would be available to be on standby power, which needed to change from one panel to the other. So this quote contemplates pulling the additional wire and feeding them to the panel that has the standby power on it versus the panel they were originally intended. So that way the end function of the HVAC system would match the intent that we'd work through with facilities and the principal and all that. That is ATP 71. ATP 81. This is actually, it's a $0 change order because it's utilizing an allowance. As part of, I don't know if you recall, a number of meetings ago, there was some rerouting of telecommunications lines to coordinate with the playground installation. Once the communications lines actually went to go be installed, they encountered some rock under the soil there. So this doesn't use any contingency money, but uses a portion of that allowance to go ahead and have dealt with the rock that they encountered. I think it was just combined value was about $3,900 worth of rock removal.
Was that the only rock on the job, or we hit a little bulb before in the foundation? I'm trying to remember.
I think this is the first use of this allowance, actually. You know, we had an allowance for $48,000, and this is the first touching of it, I believe. I don't
I think
recall
we
any
hit some
previous one.
unsuitables.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
in the beginning of the job with the foundations. But I don't think we hit ledge.
No, so on the project site, this is the first time that we're actually hitting rock, and it was over by the west playground closer to Mungertown Road. So other than that, we haven't encountered any other rock on the site, just when we were digging for the telecommunication lines going to that new pole.
Got it. How ironic. The one digging for something only a few feet deep and you hit it first time you found it.
Next one, ATP 95 for 18,826. These are for all of the site light poles. So as part of getting the telecommunications data lines out to the site poles for the wireless access points and the cameras, some of it they're sufficiently far away from the MDF and IDF data closet rooms that there are power over Ethernet extenders needed. The power over Ethernets technically would fit within the poles, but it's not, you can't really construct them that way with how tight the poles are. So the change order is for each of the site poles to have a weatherproof rated enclosure to actually make the installation work up front, but also would help with if there's any maintenance issues or reworking or extra pulling that has to be done between now and the end use of the building. There's an actual place to pull it that's not just required to cut into the light pole to be able to run the additional power, or power or data or what have you. So that's what this change order covers, is that those actual boxes to make the installation work. ATP 96 for 10,551. This is the main curtain wall. We've had a couple of change orders for that location. I believe this is the last one, Zach, right? We're not tracking any others for the canopy right now.
Correct. Yeah, this is the last ATP that we have for the curtain walls out front.
Yeah, so we were tracking a few. We've approved all of them besides this last one. This is for additional, another location of additional structural steel supports around the curtain wall. It's just at the interface of the main entry vestibule and the curtain wall itself to help support the curtain wall components and make sure that it all pans out. I don't know if I have an image here, but basically interface of our main curtain wall and our vestibule. Structural components needed there. So that was reviewed with Tecton and the structural engineer to make sure that those systems were supported. ATP 97, 4,278. This is for the kiln that's coming over. I believe it's from Jeffrey. So we don't have a new kiln as part of the project because that kiln is relatively new and working just fine. It's getting moved over. But based on the actual hood that's part of the kiln, it needs to get tied into the exhaust systems in the room. So this is to have Gilbane, who doesn't own the furniture components of the project, tie into the actual kiln hood and provide some ducting up to make the final connection into our exhaust system. ATP 100, $926 for some disconnect switches at the unit heaters required by code. That just wasn't in the documents. So that's what these switches are for. It's for like I said, $926. ATP 102, $1,232. There was a third-party electrical inspector helping out the building official that were reviewing the electrical components and doing the installation inspections. And based on their reading of the code, there was an additional grounding electrode component needed to be installed. So this covers the installation of that additional component. ETP 103, $1,327. There was a conflict between some of the plumbing components within the sinks. And so working through with Ben Facilities on how to resolve the conflict between some of the plumbing and some of the actual fixtures, we came up to this solution to resolve that conflict. So again, 1327 for some of the plumbing components. ATP 105, 5,177. Connecticut Water was the utility provider for this area. They required 2 1.5-inch meters rather than a 3-inch meter for the project, which basically required another assembly to be installed versus just one assembly. So this covers the change to satisfy Connecticut Water's request for how they wanted to meter the building.
Does that change the rate that we pay? Or is it, I mean, I know there's tied into meters or tied into the size of the meter, I thought, but
I can follow up on that. Ask. ATP 106, and on a good note for a credit, as part of that water meter swap over, there was some BMS integration that was no longer needed based on the type of metering and whatnot. So this credit reflects not having to do that final integration. All right, I will pause there. And if there's any questions, then I can bring up the motions, but like I said, I want to pause for a second just because there's a lot. Okay.
are your vocal cords tuned up? Are you
I'll do the best I can. I'm getting over a cold, so
you can ask for other volunteers, but you know,
it doesn't matter.
okay.
I need to turn my phone off. I'm getting chimed. All right, motion to approve ATP 71 for change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $3,555 for power changes to support VAV boxes on standby power.
Do we have a second?
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 81 for the use of owner allowance number 7 in the amount of $3,953 for rock removal at the installation of communications line.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 95 for a change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $18,826 for additional enclosures at the light poles.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 96 for change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $10,551 for additional steel supports at the canopy at the curtain wall 6.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 97 for a change in Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $4,278 for ductwork and power to the owner-provided kiln.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 100 for change to Gilbane, Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $926 for disconnect switches at unit heaters.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 102 for a change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $1,232 for generator grounding requested by the building official.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 103 for a change in Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $1,327 for alternative plumbing components at a single station laboratories.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 105 for a change to Gilbane's existing construction contract in the amount of $5,177 for alternative water meter assemblies required by the utility company.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve ATP 106 for change to Gilbane's existing construction contract for a credit in the amount of $1,468 for unneeded wiring and programming based on the water meters required by the utility company.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Jared.
All right, I didn't want to keep flashing around on the screen there, so I have to reopen open the next wave of files here, so bear with me for a moment, please. Okay, so the next items are various direct purchases and a couple change orders to reflect some of these last mile equipment items that I mentioned a while back when we were doing the main furniture purchases, but now actually is coming to fruition on a lot of these. So to start, kind of alignment with the draft motions that I put together. The first is from Stryker Sales. This is a vendor that the town has worked before and also is off of a state contract for automatic defibrillators. There are 4 of them off of here for a total of $12,271.92. The next one on the list is for $421.90 through CDW via that collective pricing agreement that we've used for other components on the project for Chrome boxes. There's one digital display that'll be going in a hallway just outside the main office. Principal intends to use it for updates and things of that nature. So you walk in the building and you can see that digital display. So this is the Chrome boxes component of it. There's a couple other quotes related to that. The second one is the mount for the Chrome box, which is just over $46. There is the digital display mount to actually mount the TV to the wall, which is $55. And then there's the digital display itself, which is just over $2,800 for the display to go on the wall. So those 4 are related. CDW had them broken out as separate quotes, so that's why there's 4 motions there. The next one on our list is for just over $3,500 for the conference room conferencing kit that the town IT uses for these types of rooms. So we have a Promethean on the wall. There is a conference phone, but this is the actual conferencing Zoom device that they have in the main conference room within the building. The next one on our motions list is for just over $2,800 for one additional Promethean board. When going through the count that we submitted to the state, one of the items, one of the locations on the stage got covered up. So this was if we don't have it on there, we have a back box, but we don't have the Promethean called out for it. So we double checked with Tecton and with the school about what's that area is going to be used for, and the Promethean on the wall will be is intended. So that's why we're purchasing one more. And that would be listed as a change order to CDW's contract. If you recall, they had submitted the low bid on the Promethean boards, and then as part of that, there's also the installation for that Promethean board. So CDW breaks that price out, so there's $394 to install that Promethean board as part of that change. The last 2 items in terms of motions, this is, if you recall, I sent an email about a few hours ago mentioning 2 additional items that came up today. The first one is also from CDW, coordinating with town IT about some of the last mile connections for the teacher computers and monitors and all the things they have on their desks. The town doesn't have a bank of reasonably new and reliable power strips. So this is for 100 power strips to go throughout the building to help support all the teacher workstations. Just over 800, or I'm sorry, just at $856. And then finally, there was a quote that came in today from Omni. If you recall, they're the town's IT consultant, and they won the low bid for the actual switches. So as we're going through the IT closet startup, and they were mapping out all the ports based on what was required for the town systems. There were 3 additional switches that were needed for AV, fire alarm, and public address. So this reflects the components needed to install those additional 3 switches for just over $36,000. Of these items, this last set of 3 switches was not originally anticipated. So there's about 28,000 that I would plan to pull from contingency to make up the difference for this IT quote, this last one.
How are we doing with our contingency?
We're still fine. I've not forgotten that I'm sending out an update to you all. I've been coordinating with town finance on getting an updated budget realignment, just so we can see kind of apples to apples where we're at after all the pluses and minuses. So that's on my list for this week, to send out an update to the committee on what's left on the contingency log, as well as where we're at on budget. But colloquially, that there's not a concern in terms of the available contingency funds to pay for these items.
Good, thank you.
Do we expect this is the end of the IT stuff, or are we gonna get more last minute?
There are a few other items we're tracking just in general in terms of small wares. We need to buy some American flags. That's a state statute for the classrooms that needs to be installed. So we're working on a quote for that. I think there's 1 or 2 other small items. I have my list. I'm blanking on them right now, but this was the big bulk of things that we were tracking in terms of these displays and power strips and things like that. So a couple more there, and then we'll have, like I mentioned earlier, there'll be a proposed change order to add a few more outlets and data drops for the building to accommodate some of the additional copiers that the district wants to put into the building. So there's always sort of a slow-tailed burn to the end of projects and changes and things like that. But this meeting was a big, heavy lift on the cleanup effort. Any questions on those before I put the motions on the screen?
Okay, motion to approve quote 11113583 from Stryker Sales LLC in the amount of $12,271.92 for automatic defibrillators per state contract 23 PSX 0238.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve quote PJSL 658 from CDW in the amount of $421.90 for Chromebox and cables.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve quote PKXM 979 from CDW in the amount of $46.87 for a Chromebox mount.
Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sharon, are you okay? You want me to take over?
I'm fine. I'm good. All right, motion to approve quote PJVF 978 from CDW in the amount of $55.30 for digital display mount.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve quote PK. Can you make these simpler next time?
As I was writing them, I was like, "Oh, she's not going to be happy about this."
Sorry.
I wanted to get them in the agenda. In the
I
packet.
know, I know. Motion to approve quote PKXM 917 from CDW in the amount of $2,801.20 for digital display.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve quote PJSL 737 from CDW in the amount of $3,500.83 for conferencing equipment.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve change order quote PJKXM842 to CDW's existing contract under PO 20255711 in the amount of $2,800.25 for Promethean board and mount.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve change order 14865-01 to CDW's existing contract under PO 20255711 in the amount of $394 for the installation of additional Promethean board. Close enough.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve quote PKXL290 from CDW in the amount of $856 for power strips.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve quote PXL290 from, I just did that one, sorry. Motion to approve quote 023193 as a change order to Omni's existing contract under PO 202555754 in the amount of $36,474.88 for additional network switches.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you all. Before moving on to the invoices, the last item I want to bring up, there was not in your packet, and there's no motion to approve. We got a draft ATP. Again, it'd be a $0 change. They're not pulled from contingency, but it would be an allowance use for the distributed antenna system. If you recall from back in design, something that I know Bill McMinn was very focused on was ensuring that we had as cellular antenna reception within the building, and then obviously just in general, making sure that we had our first responder radio communications. That's a requirement to make sure that that functions well within the building. As Gilbane has been working through the testing with the subcontractors and first responders and whatnot, I think there's a final walkthrough that needs to occur, but for all intents and purposes, it appears that we will not need a bidirectional antenna for first responders because that reception's working well on their bandwidths. But for the cell reception, as anyone that has been to the site can tell you, inside the building, it is not great. So the System 1 has done, System was the subcontractor under Gilbane. They've completed testing, reviewed it with Kohler Ronan. Kohler Ronan agrees that the tests indicate the performance levels are well below what's to be expected. And so this ATP to use the allowance has been generated by Gilbane. It's being reviewed right now. It would utilize $180,000 of the allowance, which is under the total allowance amount. Point being is that it's, we just got it today and haven't had a chance to look at it. But if it all looks good, it would be something that we would like to release before the next meeting, if at all possible, just to keep that moving, because it will involve installing cables above the ceilings. And so, although that shouldn't hold up certificate of occupancy, because it's just cell phone reception, At the same time, it's something we don't want to have bleed out long into the summer if we can get it done sooner rather than later. So I guess the request here for the committee tonight is if there's any exception to potentially having George and Peter authorize the ATP, presuming Colliers and Tecton and Gilbane all agree that the value is fair and good to move forward.
Do we have an approximate range of what the value is going to be?
Right. Right now the draft I'm looking at, it would utilize $180,946 of our $200,000 allowance.
Okay, so it's still in the allowance.
Yes.
So would you like us to make a motion?
Yeah, that wouldn't be inappropriate.
From
Yeah.
my understanding.
And just to make sure that it's clear that that would occur after certificate of occupancy, substantial completion. So it would be over the summer after we've had the turnover of the building. It'd be one of these, call it like a day 2 item in terms of when it would be complete.
Okay, I'll make that motion that we allow them to approve the use of the allowance money for the mobile cell phone reception things. I didn't say that right, but close enough.
Up to the $200,000 allowance limit or whatever. Yeah.
Yes.
Do we have a second? Would you like
I'll
a second, Alan?
that. Sure.
All
I'll second
all in
it.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then on to last bit, which is the invoice packet. How much I'm pulling up on my screen here now. Okay, relatively short. Tonight's invoice packet has the monthly invoices from Colliers and Tecton, as well as some of the access points from our vendor Presidio were delivered. And then Gilbane's application 14, total approval of just over $3.5 million.
Just offhand, Adam, what percentage is that construction value put in place?
Is just over, I can do run quick math. I believe it's a little over 70 something percent, closing up on 80 maybe. I won't guess. Let me let me just run the math real quick. Zach or Nick know offhand, they can beat me to the punch.
An estimate is fine. Just want to.
Yeah, no. 39. Right at 80%.
Oh, perfect. Around the corner. Do you have a motion? Will you share your screen with the?
Yes. There you go.
Perfect.
Make a motion to approve invoice package dated 5/19/2025, including invoices from Colliers, Presidio, and Tecton in the amount of $86,585.84, and a construction pay requisition 14 from Gilbane in the amount of $3,474,086.78, for a total approval of $3,672.62.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anything else, Adam, before we move on to item number 7?
I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Item 7, public comment. Raquel, do we have any members of the public?
There's no one online.
Got it. Moving on to item number 8, remarks. Does anyone have any remarks?
I just wanted to say from the tour we took last week, very, very impressive building. Well done to everybody involved. I won't mention names because we're going to leave people out, but from Colliers to Gilbane to Tecton, everybody, wow, just a very impressive building. My hat's off to you.
I'll second that, George.
and it's energy efficient on top of it, or at least in theory it is, right?
Well,
That-
the proof's in the pudding. We'll find out
Yeah,
soon.
exactly. But in theory, it's a compact, energy efficient building. It should be an energy efficient building. We'll see.
I'm sure it will be. It was wonderful to tour it, and Zach, thank you, and the rest of the staff for affording that opportunity. It was great.
And amazingly, only 14 pay recs, which is amazing. It's moving that fast.
You know, I have
anyone
one
have a
question.
question?
I was just curious, when is the sod going down? Is that this week?
No, it's not this week. It's going to be next week towards the end of the
Okay.
week.
Okay.
It's
Don't worry,
also-
Peter. We got the message. Green side up.
There's always one in the crowd.
I got to plant some grass seed soon. So you guys, with my luck, you're going to have to, as soon as I put it down, it's not going to rain for a month. So hopefully you get it before I do. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Sharon, will you
I would love to make that motion.
Do we have a second, Woody? Would you like to
I'll
second that?
second it. You betcha.
Okay, all in favor. Goodbye.